The sound of someone falling echoed through the kitchen, followed by a pained groan. "Chef, please don't push yourself. Take it easy." Commotion erupted in the kitchen of the inn where I had come with my family to unwind. The head chef had thrown out his back and couldn't cook. "But we're fully booked today. What are we going to do about the meals?" The sous chef shouted at the innkeeper, his voice harsh with frustration. The anger in his voice made everyone around fall silent. That's when my daughter, standing next to me, said with complete confidence,
"Mom can cook. Mom would handle this easily. Right, Mom?"
"Hey now, this child." I started to protest, but the single comment from my daughter would end up changing my life significantly. I'm Sarah Mitchell, a mother of 2 young children, living what had become a busy but ordinary life. Looking at the clock, it's 1 p.m. Usually at this time, I'd be cleaning the house, washing dishes, and getting ready to go shopping, always busy with household tasks. But today was different.
"Wow, amazing! Mom, there's a little stream here."
Luna's excited voice carried across the crisp winter air.
"Daddy, hurry, hurry!"
River tugged at his father's sleeve, pointing eagerly at the scenery. My husband Mark and I held their hands, walking alongside them with matching smiles. The cool mountain air filled our lungs, carrying the scent of pine and snow. "It's beautiful, but no running here. You might get hurt, and there are other guests too," I cautioned, giving their small hands a gentle squeeze.
"Okay,"
they chorused, though I could feel their bodies practically vibrating with contained excitement. Today was our family vacation, a rare treat we'd been planning for months. Mark had finally managed to get an extended break from his accounting firm, and we'd chosen this countryside inn for its reputation and beautiful location. Though the inn showed its age in places, it had a distinctive charm that newer establishments couldn't match. The worn wooden floors seemed to tell stories of countless happy visitors, and the traditional architecture blended perfectly with the mountain landscape. Near the old inn, I noticed new construction beginning, showing that the area was still popular with tourists. The contrast between old and new created an interesting dynamic, like watching the past and future exist side by side. "Sarah, look at that view over there," Mark said, pointing to where the mountains met the sky in a dramatic sweep of white peaks against blue. "Yeah, the air is so fresh too. I'm glad we came." I breathed in deeply, feeling some of my usual tension melt away. Mark was like a kid himself, excitedly pointing out different views to me. It warmed my heart to see him so carefree. Usually, he was buried in spreadsheets and client meetings. As soon as we reached our room, the children pounced on Mark.
"I want to go skiing, Daddy,"
Luna announced, pulling at his coat.
"That's right. We promised we would today,"
River chimed in, not to be outdone by his sister. We had researched beforehand and found there was a small ski slope near the inn, perfect for beginners. While Mark and I tried to organize our luggage, the children bounced around the room like excited puppies. "Sarah, why don't you go enjoy the hot spring first?" Mark suggested, deftly catching River as he attempted to climb onto a chair. "Really? Is that okay?" "You've been looking forward to it. I've got these 2, don't worry. Take some time for yourself today." He smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling in that way that always made my heart skip a beat. "Oh, honey." I felt a rush of gratitude. Though he was busy with work, he was a wonderful father who always made time for the children on his days off. Mark rubbed my back gently. "It's nothing. Let's meet up for dinner later." "Yes, have lots of fun, you 3. "You take your time and relax, Sarah." "I will." I watched as Mark helped the children into their winter gear, Luna insisting she could zip up her own coat, while River struggled with his mittens. They looked like little colorful marshmallows in their puffy snow clothes, and I couldn't help but smile as Mark herded them toward the door. "Remember to stay on the beginner slope," I called after them. "We will," Mark answered, while the children were already racing down the hallway, their excited chatter echoing off the walls. The walk to the hot spring was peaceful, with the afternoon sun casting long shadows through the trees. The old wooden walkway creaked beneath my feet, each board worn smooth by countless footsteps. As I approached the women's entrance, The familiar mineral scent of the hot spring filled the air, promising relaxation. I sighed contentedly as I lowered myself into the steaming water. The hot spring was exactly what I needed, the perfect temperature, with a view of snow-capped mountains through the steam. A few other guests nodded politely, but maintained the peaceful silence, each lost in their own thoughts. As I soaked, my mind wandered back to my days as an executive chef. The steam rising from the water reminded me of the kitchen's controlled chaos, the sizzle of perfectly seared meat, the symphony of chopping and stirring and plating. I missed it. There was no point denying that. But the memory of Harrison's sneering face made my stomach clench, even in this peaceful setting. After about an hour, I reluctantly left the hot spring, my skin pink and softened from the mineral-rich water. I felt wonderfully relaxed as I walked back through the inn's corridors, my hair still slightly damp. Several staff members hurried past me, their traditional uniforms rustling softly as they moved. They carried themselves with such grace, shifting to the side with polite nods as they passed. Their footsteps made a gentle pat-pat-pat sound against the wooden floor. The quiet elegance of the inn staff made me nostalgic for my own days in professional kitchens. Before Harrison, before the stress and harassment, when I'd love every minute of creating beautiful food for appreciative guests.
Mommy!
Luna's voice snapped me out of my reverie. Looking down the hallway, I saw my family had returned from skiing, their cheeks flushed red from the cold. Mark looked exhausted, clearly having struggled to keep up with two energetic children on the slopes. The children, however, seemed to have endless energy as they ran toward me. "Hey! No running, remember?" I started to say, but it was too late. Bump. Oh my. A gentle voice exclaimed as the children collided with someone rounding the corner. My heart sank as I recognized the elegant elderly couple from earlier. They wore refined clothing that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, and I immediately bowed deeply. "I'm so sorry. Are you all right?" To my surprise, the woman laughed warmly. "Oh no, it's perfectly fine. Such wonderful energy these little ones have." The children, properly chastened, bowed as well.
We're sorry, sir and ma'am.
"That's all right," the gentleman said kindly. "It's very good that you apologized. Are you here on vacation with Mom and Dad?"
Yes!
Luna brightened immediately.
We went skiing. I only fell down 3 times. I only fell twice,
River added proudly. The couple, who would later introduce themselves as Mr. and Mrs. Whitfield, listened to the children's excited chatter with genuine interest. They had a grandparental warmth about them that put everyone at ease. "We're truly sorry about that," Mark said, having caught up with the children. "Oh my, it was just a light bump." Mrs. Whitfield waved away our concern. "Let's all enjoy our stays here." "Yes, please, enjoy yours as well," I replied, touched by their kindness. After they left, Mark and I shared a relieved look. "They were such nice people," I said, smoothing Luna's windblown hair. "They were. Well, shall we go get some dinner now that things have settled down?" "Yes."
Dinner!
The children cheered, their earlier embarrassment forgotten. As we walked to the dining room, I couldn't help admiring the inn's character. The wooden beams overhead were darkened with age, but meticulously maintained, and traditional artwork adorned the walls. Through the windows, the setting sun painted the snowy landscape in shades of gold and pink. "This inn has such great character," I mused aloud. "Yeah, it might not be new, but it's well maintained and has lots of loyal guests," Mark replied. "When I was researching, I read that their food is especially elaborate and delicious." I nodded, still taking in the view. It was the kind of scene you could look at forever and keep finding new details to appreciate. Suddenly, Mark rubbed my back, his touch gentle but concerned. "Are you really sure it was okay to quit?" I must have let my expression darken while thinking about food in restaurants. "It's fine," I said quickly. "Let's go enjoy dinner." But before we could reach the dining room, we heard a commotion from the kitchen. Raised voices carried through the door, followed by the sound of something or someone falling.
What's wrong?
Luna asked, clutching my hand.
Something's happening,
River added, trying to peek around Mark's legs. "Chef, please, you mustn't," a woman's voice called out, thick with concern. Worried, I moved closer to the kitchen to investigate, my family following behind me. Through the partially open door, I could see the head chef, a distinguished older man, sitting on the floor, his face contorted in pain. "I can... oh," he groaned, trying to stand.
See? You're still in pain.
One of the kitchen staff supported his shoulder, trying to keep him from moving. "It's my chronic back pain. The cold weather made it act up," the chef explained through gritted teeth. The situation became clear. The head chef had thrown out his back, likely aggravated by the winter weather. Though he insisted he could work after lying down for a moment, it was obvious he could barely move. Quick footsteps announced the arrival of the innkeeper, a petite woman with streaks of gray in her dark hair.
"Please, don't push yourself. Take it easy,"
she pleaded. The sous chef, a young man with worried eyes, raised his voice. "But we're fully booked today. What are we going to do about the meals?"
"Well,"
the innkeeper wrung her hands, clearly distressed. I understood their panic. The inn's cuisine, while not famous in the broader sense, was known among connoisseurs for its intricate, delicate preparations. It wasn't the kind of cooking that could be done by simply following a recipe. It required experience, skill, and an understanding of subtle flavors.
"Grandpa, does it hurt?"
River asked innocently, making everyone in the kitchen suddenly aware of our presence. The innkeeper noticed us and immediately bowed. "I'm so sorry to have you see this." "No, please don't worry about it," I replied automatically, bowing in return. That's when Luna, my precocious daughter, looked at the innkeeper with a bright smile and announced,
"Ma'am, Mom can cook. Mom's an amazing cook."
"Hey now, this child." I tried to quiet her, but she wasn't done.
"Mom used to be a professional. That's what Daddy told me."
Oh my. The innkeeper looked at me with new interest despite the chaos around her. Watching the innkeeper try to maintain her composure despite the crisis, I made up my mind. Is there anything I can help with?" "Eh?" Several heads turned toward me. "I actually have experience as an executive chef at a fine dining restaurant," I explained, straightening my shoulders slightly. "If it's all right, I could prepare one dish for the head chef to taste, and if it meets his standards, I could help out." The kitchen staff exchanged surprised glances. The innkeeper looked at the head chef, who had finally been helped into a chair. He rubbed his back thoughtfully, studying me with experienced eyes. "If you wouldn't mind trying," he said finally, his voice rough with pain but carrying authority. "We're so sorry to ask this of a guest," the innkeeper added. "It's no problem at all. Excuse me then." I bowed quickly and stepped into the kitchen, my heart already beating faster with anticipation. Mark caught my eye and smiled. "We'll wait in the room. Come on, kids."
"Can't we watch Mom cook?"
Luna protested. "Let's let Mom focus for now," Mark said gently, guiding them away. "We can peek in later." As I surveyed the kitchen, memories flooded back. The familiar weight of a chef's knife in my hand, the sizzle of a hot pan, the rhythmic chopping of vegetables, it all felt like coming home. The kitchen was well organized, with high-quality ingredients neatly arranged. Everything a chef could need was within arm's reach. I took a deep breath, inhaling the mingled aromas of simmering stocks and fresh herbs. My hands moved almost on their own, muscle memory taking over as I began to prepare a dish. I decided on a delicate fish preparation, something that would showcase technique while respecting the inn's style. The staff watched in silence as I worked, occasionally exchanging impressed glances. The head chef observed from his chair, his expression unreadable but attentive. When I presented the finished dish to them, the tension in the kitchen was palpable. The head chef took a small bite, closed his eyes, and everyone seemed to hold their breath. "This is delicious," he exclaimed, his eyes opening wide. "Such precise knife work, and the balance of flavors." "Oh my, such a gentle flavor. It fits our inn atmosphere perfectly. What wonderful cooking." The innkeeper clasped her hands together in delight. The head chef bowed to me again, deeper than before, then winced as his back protested. "Please help us." "Chef, you're back. Please don't bow so deeply. Don't worry, I'll handle everything," I said quickly, already mentally adjusting the menu to work with the available ingredients. Time was short, so I immediately began preparations. While I tried to keep the dishes close to the inn's usual offerings, I made small adjustments based on my experience. The head chef watched from his chair, occasionally nodding in approval at my techniques. As I worked, I remembered something crucial I'd learned years ago. Cooking isn't about the chef's ego, it's about the guest. This inn served everyone from young children to elderly visitors. Each dish needed to be not just delicious, but accessible. I focused on making the food easy to eat, paying special attention to the tenderness of ingredients and how they were cut. A perfectly cooked piece of fish should flake easily with just a fork. Vegetables should be cut consistently for even cooking and elegant presentation. These details matter. The kitchen staff quickly adapted to my pace, moving with increasing confidence as they saw my approach. Even the initially skeptical sous chef began to smile as the dishes came together. "That's the last one," I announced finally, wiping my brow with my sleeve. "We made it! Great work, everyone!" The relief in the kitchen was palpable, the tension dissolving like sugar in hot tea. Then, the servers returned with the first empty plates, their faces bright with excitement. "The guests love the food. They're saying it's delicious." Even our regular customers are saying they enjoy the different touch. I felt my face flush with pleasure as I thanked them. The praise was embarrassing, but the joy of creating food that made people happy, I had almost forgotten how wonderful it felt. After finishing the cleanup, the innkeeper and staff gathered to thank me properly. "You really saved us. I don't know how to thank you enough," the innkeeper bowed repeatedly. "Thank you so much. Great work," the staff chorused. "You must be exhausted. Please get some rest now," the innkeeper insisted. "We'll properly thank you another time. Thank you so much." No. Well then, I'll head back. Good work, everyone." I bowed one final time and left the kitchen, pleasant exhaustion settling into my muscles. Opening the door to our room quietly, I found the children fast asleep. Luna was curled up like a cat, while River had somehow managed to spread out starfish style, despite his small size. Mark was waiting up alone, and he'd set out some drinks and snacks. "Welcome back. You must be tired." He patted the spot next to him. "I'm back. Sorry about our vacation plans," I sat down with a sigh. "What are you talking about? The kids were so excited watching you cook," he said, pouring me some tea. "What? They were watching?" "After dinner, we snuck peeks at the kitchen. They kept saying how cool Mom looked." Mark's eyes crinkled with pride. "Luna said she wants to be just like you when she grows up." "Really?" Warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the tea. "Cooking really is fun," I admitted after a moment. "Why don't you go back to it?" I shook my head, memories of Harrison's sneering face rising unbidden. I don't want to go through that kind of experience again. Mark was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "You know, when you were cooking tonight, you looked happier than I've seen you in years, like you were finally yourself again." I couldn't answer, but I knew he was right. In that kitchen, focused only on creating beautiful food, I had felt truly alive. The next morning, we were surprised to find proper breakfast delivered to our room without any need for my help. "Looks like they figured things out. That's good," we chatted as we enjoyed our meal as a family. But during breakfast, there was a knock at our door. It was the innkeeper, looking slightly nervous but determined. "Thank you again for yesterday," she began. "Not at all. I got to cook again after so long and I really enjoyed it." "About that. Actually, some guests really enjoyed yesterday's dinner, and the Whitfields in particular asked if they could take some of your simmered dishes home. They're regular guests we really value, so would it be possible to ask for your help one last time?" "Of course! I'd be happy to." The words came out before I could even think about it. The joy of cooking was still fresh in my system, and I found myself eager to return to the kitchen. In the kitchen, I threw myself into preparing the simmered dishes with enthusiasm. Each ingredient was chosen carefully, each cooking time monitored precisely. I wanted these dishes to be a thank you to the kind elderly couple who had shown such warmth to my children. When I took the packed containers to the front desk, I was surprised to find Mr. and Mrs. Whitfield themselves waiting. Recognition dawned on their faces immediately. "Oh, it's you from yesterday," Mrs. Whitfield exclaimed warmly. "I'm so sorry again about the children," I bowed slightly. but they waved away my apology. "Don't worry about that at all. I love energetic children." Mrs. Whitfield's eyes twinkled. "Are you Mr. and Mrs. Whitfield?" "Were you the one that prepared these?" "Yes, that's right. We come here often, but yesterday's food had a slightly different touch." Mr. Whitfield began thoughtfully. "Especially the simmered dishes. They were so tender and easy for older folks like us to eat, and you could really taste the care that went into them." "Thank you so much. I'm really happy to hear that." Their genuine appreciation touched me deeply. "Where can we eat your cooking? We'd love to have it again." I hesitated. "Actually, I'm not a chef anymore. I've quit cooking professionally." Their faces fell with such sincere disappointment that I felt guilty. "Oh dear, that's such a shame." Just then the innkeeper approached. After brief greetings with the couple, she turned to me with an unexpected proposal. "Would you consider helping us out until the head chef recovers?" The innkeeper asked tentatively. "Your cooking has become very popular, and the head chef himself praised your skills and would really like your assistance." My heart leaped at her words, but reality quickly tempered my excitement. I thought of Luna and River, of Mark's work schedule, of all the practical complications. Could I discuss it with my family first? Back in our room, Mark's face lit up as soon as I explained the situation. "This is basically a job offer, isn't it?" he exclaimed, practically bouncing in his seat. I felt a wave of relief that he didn't immediately object. Still, I had to be practical. "But the children?" "The kids are on winter break, so you could work during that time," he pointed out. "They're not babies anymore, and I can handle them on my own." "But won't it be too much for you?" I wrung my hands, remembering how exhausted we both used to be when we were both working. Mark took my hands in his, stilling their nervous movement. "We managed when we both worked before. I can handle it." His eyes softened. "Besides, Sarah, I saw you in that kitchen yesterday. You were glowing." Before I could respond, Luna and River, who had been quietly playing nearby, rushed over. "Mom, are you going to cook again?" Luna asked, her eyes shining. "Go show them how cool you are, Mom," River added, throwing his small arms around my waist. Looking at their excited faces, I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. Here was my family, the very reason I'd quit cooking professionally, now pushing me to return to it. When had my children grown so supportive? When had I stopped seeing them as obstacles to my career and started seeing them as my biggest cheerleaders? And so, surrounded by their enthusiasm, I agreed to cook at the inn temporarily. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity and joy. Every day brought new challenges and rewards. The elderly guest especially appreciated my cooking, often telling me how the flavors reminded them of their mother's cooking, but more refined. I found myself experimenting with traditional dishes, making them easier to eat while maintaining their authentic flavors. The head chef, still recovering but improving daily, would often sit in the kitchen and share stories of his own culinary journey. Then, about a week later, the head chef returned to work, his back finally healed. "Thank you so much for everything," he said, bowing deeply. "Thank you as well," I replied sincerely. It was such a joy to cook again after so long. The innkeeper grasped my hands warmly. "To think you could create such delicate, thoughtful dishes. May I ask where you worked before?" The head chef looked curious as well. Taking a deep breath, I answered, "Actually, I was the executive chef at the Cherry Blossom." "What?" The kitchen fell silent. Even the clattering of pots stopped. The Cherry Blossom. Its reputation preceded it. Anyone in the industry would know of its excellence and its cutthroat atmosphere. "That prestigious restaurant?" the head chef asked, clearly impressed. "Yes, however," I paused, old wound still tender. Being a female executive chef wasn't well received, especially by Harrison Brooks, the sous chef. He wouldn't accept any of my input. The memories came flooding back. Harrison's constant undermining, his snide remarks, his deliberate sabotage. Every time I had to leave early for my children, his voice would follow me. "Again? This is why women." The harassment had started small: missing ingredients, scheduled deliveries that never arrived, prep work left undone, but it escalated quickly. "Harrison, you've been making a lot of ordering mistakes lately. Please be more careful, I had said one day, trying to keep my voice professional despite my frustration. His response was immediate and cutting. What? I'm doing my job properly. This is why women, always blaming others for everything. This has nothing to do with gender. Just do your job properly. Yeah. God, female bosses are so emotionally unstable. The constant stress had started affecting my home life. I'd snap at the children over small things, then hate myself for it. One particularly bad day, River had tried to show me a drawing.
Mom, today
Wait, I'm busy right now. Tell me later. My voice had come out sharper than intended.
Mom, are you tired? Let's sleep.
I don't have time to sleep. Just be quiet for a minute. The hurt in his eyes had been unbearable. I'd gathered him in my arms immediately, apologizing through tears, but the damage was done. My dream job was turning me into someone I didn't want to be. Management had been no help. When I reported Harrison's harassment, they'd simply shrug it off. Well, you know, Sarah, you do leave early often. We're short-staffed and it's hard when you leave early. I hate to say this in this day and age, but... Their unfinished sentence had said everything about their stance on working mothers in professional kitchens. As I shared the story with the inn staff, I felt tears threatening again. But coming here, I realized that cooking is still wonderful and exciting. I rediscovered what a wonderful profession it is. Everyone here has been so wonderful. I'm so glad I met you all. The innkeeper gently rubbed my back as I wiped my eyes. I see. You've been through so much. After composing myself, I prepared to deliver the final batch of simmered dishes to the Whitfields. But when I reached the front desk, instead of taking the container, Mrs. Whitfield smiled mysteriously and took my arm. Dear, would you consider cooking again? What? Mr. Whitfield stepped forward, gesturing toward the new construction I noticed earlier. We're planning to open a luxury retirement home in partnership with this inn. We'd love for you to be the executive chef there. What do you think? I stood speechless as they explained their vision. The Whitfields, it turned out, owned several high-end retirement homes across the country. They had been looking for someone special to head the kitchen at their new location. We were so moved by how your cooking shows such consideration for others, Mrs. Whitfield explained. We want our residents to experience that same thoughtfulness. But I thought of all the potential problems, all the old fears. Are you worried about your children? Don't worry, we'll provide support. Our retirement homes have on-site childcare providers. The children even interact with our residents. That night, I discussed it with Mark for hours after the children were asleep. Once again, he encouraged me enthusiastically. Sarah, you tend to try to handle everything yourself, but I'm family too. You can rely on me. Looking at the job details together, everything seemed to align perfectly. The commute was reasonable, the hours were more structured than restaurant work, and most importantly, I had rediscovered my passion for cooking. Several months later, I was settled into my role as executive chef at the luxury retirement home. Every day brought new joys, residents telling me how much they looked forward to meals, watching Luna and River play with the elderly guests after school, creating menus that brought comfort and happiness to people in their golden years. Then came the phone call that changed everything. When I saw Harrison Brooks' name on my phone screen, my first instinct was fear. But as I listened to him rage about losing his job, apparently the Whitfields had investigated the cherry blossom and canceled their contract after learning about the ongoing harassment. I felt something shift inside me. It's all your fault. How are you going to take responsibility? He shouted. Looking around my kitchen, where every staff member was treated with respect, where we created food with love and care, I suddenly realized something. Harrison's voice no longer held any power over me. I'm grateful, actually, I said calmly. I am who I am today thanks to you, Harrison. Good luck with everything. I ended the call and blocked his number, feeling lighter than I had in years. When I returned to the kitchen, my staff greeted me with warm smiles, and I knew I was exactly where I belonged. Later that day, as I watched Luna carefully arrange cookies on plates for the residents' afternoon tea, under the supervision of our pastry chef, I reflected on how far we'd come. The little girl who had once innocently announced, "Mom can cook," in a crisis that had helped set me back on the path I was meant to follow. Though harassment had once made me falter, it was because I didn't give up entirely that I could stand here now, creating food that made people happy, surrounded by people who supported me. Today, too, I stand proudly in my kitchen, ready to face whatever challenges come next. After all, every great dish requires all its ingredients, even the bitter ones, to create something truly memorable.